Good morning. So I had a subscriber ask a couple of questions about the modifications that I made to my pen and paper football. John M. Stater. This game can be purchased via PDF from DriveThruRPG and Lulu for about $2. And I've talked about this game many times. I have played many hours of this game since I found it in 2017. It is possibly has had the greatest impact on me in tabletop sports, which of course led me down the road to get back to tabletop gaming, sports gaming. It inspired me to bring my creations, to the table, etc. So I thought I would go over, the changes I made to that I do for my gaming in pen and paper. So on pages 20 and 21 at the top of the page, I label a D6 roll for major markets and minor markets. So 1 to 2, that would be a major market team. 3 through 6 would be a minor market team. So the first roll I make with my D6 is to determine whether a team, when I'm building a league or if I'm expanding the league and I want to just randomize who might join the league, I roll a single D6. Sorry, I had to get my dice. I rolled a single D6 to determine that. So let's roll. So I rolled a 1. That's a major market team. And then what I've done in my book is I've actually labeled every market in the team with a D66 number, 11 through 66. And so at the top, Atlanta would be 11, Arizona 12, Baltimore 13, Birmingham 14, Boston 15, Charlotte 16, Chicago 21. And then I rolled the dice. So I labeled those all the way down until I get to 66. And I do that on the other one. So both pages, I've got the what market with 1D roll, and then I'll roll now to see what the major market is. So let's make us a team here. I love pen and paper football. 44 is what I've rolled. So that's going to be New Orleans. So we're going to end up with a New Orleans. We're going to end up with a New Orleans Voodoo. Right? New Orleans Voodoo. Okay, and then I roll for their style. So at the bottom of 21, I actually wrote down style. Smash Mouth 1 to 2, Balance 3 to 4, Run and Shoot 5 to 6. And that's written at the bottom of 21, and you roll a 2 with Smash Mouth. So they're going to be, and I'll just put head coach, Smash Mouth. And again, I can give him a name, John Green, right? So when I want to change this team, if they're doing poorly, I can just fire John Green and roll up a new head coach, right? Now, here's the thing I do that I don't talk about a lot. I've added position units so I can have complete rosters for my teams. And I do this in particular if I'm going to use, like, if I want to make NFL style teams and I want to keep actual full starting lineup, right? So I have quarterbacks, I have running backs, I have wide receivers, and I have offensive line. So let's roll up my quarterbacks. So 9, 10. My quarterbacks are going to be 10. 10 is plus 3, so 10 plus 3. My running backs are 9 plus 3, I believe. Yep. My receivers, ooh, dang, 7. That's not good. Plus 2. So we don't have a great receiving core, and I have an offensive line unit. 11, 12, 13, and 13 is 4. Right? And that gives me my offense. And that's going to be 10, 12, so plus 12. So there's my offensive unit, right? Defense, I have, of course, DLs, so defensive linemen, linebackers, DBs, and special teams unit, because I love to have punters and kickers. They're important to the successful football teams. Plus, when I do my box scores, I'll have punts blocked, I'll have punt returners return punts and stuff like that. So DL is 11, so we got 11, which is going to be plus 3. linebacker is 9 plus 3, so pretty average, this team so far. Pretty average. And, sorry, we got 7, 8 plus 2. Right? So our DBs and our receivers are, this team is definitely smash mouth. And then 8, 9 plus 3. Now, let me make the smash mouth modifications. Right? But I record, because if you fire a coach, I need to know what those base grades were originally. A smash mouth football team concentrates on the run, building a strong defensive line. A smash mouth football team increases their running back unit. So we're technically going to go from a 9 to a 10. Still a plus 3. Right? Building a running back and lineman scores plus 1 to each, decreasing its receivers by 1 each. Oh no. So the receivers are actually worse, which I think is still a plus. Yeah, still a plus 2, fortunately. Right? The linemen actually go up 14, and I believe that's going to give them a plus 4, so that didn't change. These guys go up to a 12. That doesn't change. But the DBs still going down. That didn't change. So here's an example of the smash mouth effect. Didn't change any of the actual bonuses, right? So now I know that the coach is, of how the coach is affecting these teams. Wow, that's moving way out there. I don't know why I did that. There we go. And then, of course, our defense is 9, 10, 11, plus 11. And we're still going to, and it's okay to add these because every team's going to have them. So these pluses are going to be relative, right? So your teams, it ain't going to mess up the team bonuses or anything. What it will do is it'll even out the curve. Obviously, if we add, the more attributes we add, the more this curve will even out for both sides of the ball. So what you'll end up with are more teams that are just a little more linear on the bell curve, right? So just know that. But it's not. I don't think adding 1 to offense and 1 to defense is going to blow up that bell curve too much. But do know that if you do that, you are slightly changing the potential strengths and weaknesses of teams. Because, for instance, this team was 6, 7, 8. Adding that OL really made up for the loss of the wide receivers. So what ends up happening is, as poor as the wide outs are, when I talk about the bell curve, we're talking about the averages plus 3. So you can see this team would have had a deficit at receiver, but their O-line was so good that it balanced out that deficit, and we're technically a plus 3, plus 3, plus 3, right? That would have been 12. That would have been 12 points. So what you'll see is a team, but here's a team that's 3, 3, 3, and a 2, so they have that deficit. So what I'm trying to say is, it used to be your average team was a 9. Now your average team will be a 12. So this team is going to have an average offense. Fortunately, their offensive line is fantastic. They made up for their receivers, but their defense is slightly below average. So you're going to go from an average of 9 to an average of 12. So just remember what changes when it looks like, oh my God, they're a plus 12. No, that's an average. This is an average offense. This is a slightly below average defense. So that's the fun. But yeah, so what happens is it just changes. It widens out the curve from a 9-point average to a 12-point average. So that's all you need to know. And that's it. That's all the custom stuff I do. And then, of course, this team, right, I might choose to use the 1970 Saints roster, right? So I would then go in and name the starters, right? So the quarterback, is Manning. I can't remember who their top backs were, but then I would put in their top halfback and fullback. I would have names, I would know what the names were for their stuff. And then the receivers, I think, Bogdanovich, Bragg, I can't remember what his name is, Bragg. I can't remember his name now. But then, of course, we'd have our split end, our tight end, and our flanker minimum for 1970s, and then our OL. I generally list the key contributors: left tackles, centers, and right guards. In history, your left tackle is paramount to the success of your football team. Your center is he's the quarterback, your offensive line. Your center is huge. He's a huge part of the how efficient your offensive line gets the job done. And then your right guard, historically, now this isn't true as much in today's modern football because teams run every possible direction, but historically, most teams are right-handed. Most quarterbacks are right-handed, which means you tend to hand off the run to the right. Your strong side, you generally have your tight end on the strong right. Your left tackle protects the backside of the quarterback. But historically, your right guard was your power blocker. He was the guy that kind of you could build your power around to run the ball. So your left guard might be more of a pass blocker. Your right guard would be your power runner. This is the guy you run behind generally, right? Or it could be the opposite way if you're a left-handed team. But the point is, I'm not really worried about writing down all 5 starting, and then I'll generally write down whoever the main defensive linemen are. So I usually do the DE, nose tackle, and another DE. So I just have at least 3, which means I generally do the Will backer, Will, Mike, and Sam backers. Those are your 3 key linebackers: your weak side, your middle backer, your strong side backer. And then, of course, I always do cornerback, strong safety, and free safety. So we're going to have a key lockdown cornerback. You're going to have the strong safety who's responsible for filling gaps in the run game as well as covering backs and tight ends. And then you're going to have the guy who protects the deep middle of the field and helps double cover some of those ex-receivers. And then, of course, special teams is easy. We got our punter, our kick returner, and our punt returner. And most importantly, our place kicker, right? So special teams kind of represents all of your special teams starters. So your punter, your kick returner, punt returner, and PK. You don't need any of this in this game, but I like to do it. So a lot of times I'll choose an era. For instance, I have a 1954 advanced league like this, so I use the 1954 NFL rosters to know who the players are, just so I have names, because I don't like to try to dream up a name for every single position. So, and then I know if there's a star on a team, I kind of know that. For instance, if this team had a star, well, Manning, definitely, right? So. But that's how I do my advanced. Those are my adaptations to Pen and Paper Football by John M. Stater, and that is how I've edited my book. Literally with a pen, I wrote these things into my book because there's plenty of space, and the book's cheap enough to jot these notes in it. But that's what my advanced pen and paper teams look like, right? And then I can just go to Pro Football Reference and jot down the top 2 backs, jot down the top receivers, jot down their offensive linemen, jot down these guys, and heck, you can copy and paste the entire starting lineups for both teams, and then if you're like me and you're keeping box scores, which I do. I mean, part of my joy of pen and paper was when I realized they'd had this great fast play league play, but you didn't just roll a score, you rolled for every quarter. And then I realized, wait a minute, I can track touchdowns, I could track field goals, I could track big plays like sacks and interceptions by creating a fast action deck, and that deck will tell me whether a team has turned it over or if there's a touchdown, whether it's a running touchdown or a passing touchdown. And so I really ended up, and that ended up happening because I used Pen and Paper Football for my first online league on YouTube and Facebook when I started the Patriot Football League, and I invited people in the community to own a team, and they had to tell me basically where their team was located. But I had assigned random names from the 1960 NFL season to their backups. They had starters that they drafted. I created a draft, and we did a round robin draft, but all the backup players had names from a random 1960 NFL team that I assigned. So and we had OLs and special teams players on the box scores, but I did not rate them. This I added after my Patriot Football League experience later when I made a new league and started. I wanted to see offensive linemen and special teams have their own rating. So anyway, I wanted to share this because I've had one subscriber in particular who I think enjoys pen and paper football as much as I do, and so I wanted to give him how I do this thing. Okay, bye bye.